Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thank you for joining me. I'm just going to put a quick video out here because I'm recovering from teaching the Texas class. But what I want to discuss with you today is why America is not like the rest of the world and why we were never supposed to be like the rest of the world. Why does this matter right now? In the midst of all of the changes that have been going on in the past 2 years, 99% of which are for the bad, we need to evaluate what our role is, what our culture's role is in the rest of the world, and why, in order for us to maintain our freedom, we are going to have to embrace defiance on pretty much every level of involvement in our lives. America was not supposed to take its marching orders from the rest of the world and from the way the rest of the world conducts itself, government or otherwise. Our founding documents illustrate this principle very well, and the founding fathers were very articulate men, well schooled in history, and very familiar with the nature of human events and their sum total of trends, which constitutes history. They understood what happens when groups of people get together and governments serve them. Our founding documents illustrate how we as a nation were supposed to be a refuge from government, a refuge from rules, a refuge from having some entity tell you what to do and dictate every facet of your life. The rest of the world, particularly old world Europe, was built on the idea that a monarch could tell you what to do, that a monarch owned, for instance, all of the animals that were hunted in the land, that a monarch dictates an unelected individual who just knew better because of divine right. Too religious nowadays, but we'll say that this unelected individual just knew better because they happened to be a philosopher king. These unelected people were going to tell you what to do, and you just had to put up with it. That is the way the rest of the world has functioned. That is the way that the rest of the world was functioning at the time, for the most part, when our country was created, when our founding documents were written, and when the vision for America took form in a federal system of government. We were never supposed to be like the rest of the world, where people far, far away in capital cities told everybody what to do and they just had to suck it up and deal with it. We are a nation born out of armed rebellion. We are a nation that prioritized defiance, and a nation whose founding moral principles involved defiance, involved breaking laws, involved uncomfortable conversations and disobedience to a government. These are our founding morals. We have founding values, and part of the founding values of the United States of America is saying no. And not just saying no when you have permission to say no, but saying no when saying no costs you something, when saying no makes you feel uncomfortable. Saying no, defiance of tyranny, is what this nation is all about. So really, not caring about what the rest of the world thinks is also what this nation is about. Not caring what international global governance bodies think and actually defying them directly, that's what the United States of America is about. So really, when people say it's un-American or unpatriotic to do X, Y, or Z, to fold, to capitulate, to allow someone to bully you, to coerce you, to cow you into making decisions, particularly healthcare decisions that are not in your own best interest or that you don't feel comfortable with, it is your duty as an American to defy it. It is your duty as an American to hold to our principles rather than do what the rest of the world does and get in line to be a compliant little serf. We are a nation of free men, but in order to be free, one has to be defiant and one has to be a little bit prickly at times. You can do this in civil ways. I'll be civil with people as long as they're respectful to me. But if somebody throws down, there are consequences for violating my boundaries. That's a self-respect issue. And that is why we don't do things like the rest of the world. because defiance is fundamentally a self-respect issue. A person who lacks strength of character to defy something that is unrighteous, to defy something that violates their conscience and breaks their boundaries, that's a lack of self-respect. Ultimately, we are a nation of men who respect themselves. We are a nation of people who recognize that this respect is not from some pie in the sky, lofty ideal. We're not exactly sure where it comes from. Our respect stems from a servanthood to the Almighty. Everyone is going to serve something or someone. At the founding of this nation, people served kings and the dictates of a crown. Nowadays, they serve the self, they serve the state, they serve whatever. We're supposed to be servants indeed, but only to the Lord God Almighty. Only to Him. And any dictate that violates my conscience or my understanding of what He has told me a priori, not going to be following it. Defiance is a virtue. Defiance is an American virtue. And that's one of the reasons why we don't do things the way that the rest of the world does things. People used to look to us as a city on a hill. I hope that they will continue to look to us in the future as a source of strength and encouragement. Definitely there are nations right now who share our common ancestry with English law as backing, with the Magna Carta as a shared history, but unfortunately they allowed themselves to be disarmed. And now that same nation, these same nations, are returning in a highly technified manner to the same old ways of a crown. We've just changed a crown for tech and a crown for the state. We are not supposed to do things the way that the rest of the world does them, because we're the leaders. We have been the leaders. The question is, are we going to be leaders, and in what sense? Does leadership internationally mean involving our military industrial complex everywhere? Is that what leadership looks like? Does leadership look like having air bases and using the dollar as a diplomatic weapon? Or does leadership in an international scene, does it take flesh with our values when we lead in the United States? How do we do that? Do we do that with superior might alone from a military standpoint? Do we do that from dollar diplomacy? Or do we do this from principle? I submit to you that our founding fathers and the vision of this nation was never to be a nation of leadership from an empire standpoint. It was not to be a nation of leadership from getting the rest of the world hooked on our drug of choice, our cheap dollars. I submit to you that the original vision, what it means to be an American and why we don't do things differently, is because we allow our principles, the principles of freedom, the principles of the revolution, to be our central pillars upon which to build our legacy. The nations who have abandoned these principles are lost to the dustbin of history. The question is, are we going to learn from the lessons of the past? I hope it was helpful for you all today. If you did enjoy the video, I hope you'll subscribe to me here on YouTube, Patriot Nurse. You can also stay with me on Patreon, subscribe to our cryptocurrency and PayPal. I have links below. Patreon in the days coming is where I'm going to be able to share with you more of the subject matter that I cannot share here on YouTube because of the platform that I'm coming to. So it is what it is. If you want to stay with me, I recommend that you do that. And thank you so much for your support. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and that you're able to get together with your families and encourage each other and build each other up and savor the time that you have with each other. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.